On March 5th, 2020, after a dismal showing on Super Tuesday, Senator Elizabeth Warren ended her presidential campaign.
I am suspending my campaign for president. I will not be running for president in 2020, but I guarantee I will stay in the fight.
No, you won't. So how did we get here? Well, let's do a post-mortem of the 2020 presidential campaign of Elizabeth Warren. In 2011, Harvard law professor Elizabeth Warren launched an exploratory committee for a US Senate run in Massachusetts, and at a house party in Andover, one of her speeches went viral on the internet where she was talking about fair taxation.
There is nobody in this country who got rich on his own. Nobody. You moved your goods to market on the roads the rest of us paid for. Yep. You hired workers the rest of us paid to educate. You were safe in your factory because of police forces and fire forces that the rest of us paid for.
Now, if this all sounds familiar, it's because President Obama co-opted parts of Warren's speech in 2012.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we had that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Okay, fine, maybe you didn't contribute to the original build-out of the infrastructure, but your federal, state, and local taxes sure go towards maintaining all of it. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it here because it's a really dumb argument. So to help her chances in the Senate race, Warren was given a primetime slot at the 2012 Democratic National Convention.
People feel like the system is rigged against them. And here's the painful part. They're right. The system is rigged.
The system is rigged, you're all victims, keep voting Democrat. $39 million later, Elizabeth Warren beat incumbent Scott Brown and headed to the US Senate. As a member of the Senate Banking Committee, Warren had several moments that went viral, including this one questioning Treasury Department officials in the aftermath of the HSBC money laundering scandal.
If you're caught with an ounce of cocaine, the chances are good you're going to go to jail. If it happens repeatedly, you may go to jail for the rest of your life. But evidently, if you launder nearly $1 billion for drug cartels and violate our international sanctions, your company pays a fine and you go home and sleep in your own bed at night.
In 2017, Warren emerged as the most powerful critic of Wells Fargo leadership after a major account fraud scandal.
You enabled this fake account scam, you got rich off it, and then you tried to cover it up. At best, you were incompetent. At worst, you were complicit. And either way, you should be fired. Wells Fargo needs to start over, and that won't happen until the bank rids itself of people like you who led it into this crisis.
You have to admit, she's got a point. But the moment that made Warren a superstar within the Democratic Party was on the Senate floor when she protested Senator Jeff Sessions' nomination to be the United States Attorney General by reading a letter from Coretta Scott King.
Mr. Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by Black citizens in the district he now seeks to serve as a federal judge. This simply cannot be allowed to happen.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Long story short, Republicans argued that Warren had violated a Senate rule. Warren strongly objected, and the Senate ruled to silence her for the remainder of Sessions' confirmation hearings. After the vote, Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell made this now infamous statement.
Senator Warren was giving a lengthy speech. She had appeared to violate the rule. She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted.
And with that, a new rallying cry for women all over America was born. Yeah, I know. And so was the movement for Warren to run for president in 2020. And this is where the fun begins. In 2018, Warren released a video announcing the launch of a presidential exploratory committee where she said this about her father.
After my older brothers joined the military and I was still just a kid, my daddy had a heart attack and couldn't work. My daddy ended up as a janitor.
However, in previous statements and in several of her books, Warren claimed that her father held a different occupation.
I'm somebody who grew up on the ragged edge of the middle class. My daddy was maintenance man.
First of all, shouldn't it be maintenance person? Come on. But seriously, there's a big difference between a janitor and a maintenance man. One keeps the building clean, while the other maintains it, performing tasks like plumbing work, painting, and electrical repairs. The Boston Globe reported that a longtime friend of Elizabeth Warren's brother David disagreed with the way Warren calls herself the daughter of a janitor, and quoted David as saying, "My dad was never a janitor." Then there was this story that she told on Meet the Press about a Me Too experience.
I was a baby law professor and so excited to have my first real teaching job. And there was a senior faculty member who, would tell dirty jokes and make comments about my appearance. And one day he asked me if I would stop by his office, which I didn't think much about, and I did. And he slammed the door and lunged for me. It was like a bad cartoon. He's chasing me around the desk, trying to get his hands on me.
She is talking about University of Houston law professor Eugene Smith, who died in 1997. Warren had previously told this story at his funeral. What Warren didn't mention, but was reported by the Washington Post, was that Smith was diagnosed with post-polio syndrome. And some at the funeral wondered whether it was physically possible for Smith to have done what Warren described.
He's chasing me around the desk, trying to get his hands on me.
In a story by The Cougar, retired law professor John Mixon told the story of how Warren was invited to lunch with Smith and other professors after her job interview, and how Smith couldn't even cut his own steak due to the effects of the polio. Professor Mixon also described how Smith walked hunched over and how his arms were increasingly useless as he aged. So you might question Warren's story of being chased around a desk by a man who could barely walk trying to put his useless hands on her. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen or anything. I wasn't there, but you have every right to be skeptical. Then there was Warren's claim for years that she was Native American. This was uncovered during her 2012 Senate run, but she largely shrugged it off in a campaign ad.
As a kid, I never asked my mom for documentation when she talked about our Native American heritage. What kid would? But I knew my father's family didn't like that she was part Cherokee and part Delaware, so my parents had to elope. Let me be clear. I never asked for or never got any benefit because of my heritage. The people who hired me have all said they didn't even know about it.
No, they totally knew about it. According to an article in the Boston Globe, Harvard Law School was promoting her as a Native American faculty member. In 1996, the Harvard Crimson published an article about the level of representation of women and minorities on the law school faculty. A spokesperson for the law school pointed out that Professor of Law Elizabeth Warren is Native American. According to a post by Maggie Haberman on Politico, a 1997 Fordham Law Review described her as Harvard Law School's first woman of color. And according to the Washington Post, several months after Warren started working at Harvard Law School in 1995, she okayed listing her ethnicity as Native American. And Harvard listed Warren as Native American in its federal affirmative action forms from 1995 to 2004.
The people who hired me have all said they didn't even know about it.
And to complicate matters, sometimes she would put on applications that she was Native American, but on others, she would say that she was white. And in Pow Wow Chow, a cookbook of American Indian recipes, which was edited by Warren's first cousin, the senator is listed as Elizabeth Warren, Cherokee, and has several entries in the book. And if you're feeling dumb for not knowing that the Cherokee are famous for their cold omelet dishes, you're not alone, because they're not. Warren's recipe is identical to this recipe by French chef Pierre Franly that was printed by the New York Times. Everything from the tarragon to the tomato mayonnaise dressing. Warren has never addressed the claims of this alleged plagiarism, and why should she? It's not like she was the author of the book, and maybe that French chef actually stole that recipe from the Cherokee, who knows? Critics of Warren would not let this go, especially President Trump, who has brought it up several times, including at this rally in Montana in July 2018.
She proclaims that she's of Indian heritage because her mother said she has high cheekbones.
At the same rally, President Trump joked that if he ended up on the same debate stage with Warren, that he would offer her a DNA test to prove it.
You know those little kits they sell on television for $2? Learn your heritage. I will give you $1 million to your favorite charity, paid for by Trump, if you take the test and it shows you're an Indian, you know. And let's see what she does, right?
Well, Warren must have thought that this was a legitimate offer because in October 2018, she took a DNA test and released a video about it.
Now, the president likes to call my mom a liar. What do the facts say?
The facts suggest that you
absolutely have a Native American ancestor in your pedigree.
The facts suggest that she absolutely does. That makes zero sense. Not only that, but in the video, she neglected to show the results, which concluded that she is at best 1/64th Native American and at worst 1/1024th. And that means she's not a Native American. Warren doubling down on her claim that she was Native American completely backfired. It not only provided fodder to her critics, but it invited additional scrutiny from the media. Just days before announcing her entry into the presidential race, the Washington Post obtained Warren's registration card for the State Bar of Texas, where she listed her race as American Indian. When asked about this new revelation, she didn't give a very good answer.
When I was growing up in Oklahoma, I learned about my family the same way most people do. My brothers and I learned from our mom and our dad and our brothers and our sisters, and those were our family stories. But that said, there really is an important distinction of tribal citizenship. I am not a member of a tribe, and I have apologized for not being more sensitive to that distinction. It's an important distinction.
Instead of saying that she wasn't sensitive to that distinction, she should be saying that she was completely ignorant to how tribal citizenship in the Native American community works. But did she drop out of the race? No, because her supporters were more angry about President Trump calling Warren
Pocahontas
than Warren's actual cultural appropriation, so let's never speak of it again. On February 9th, 2019, Senator Elizabeth Warren made a big announcement.
I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
And with that, Warren hit the debate trail and told the story about how she wanted to be a school teacher from a very young age.
And I want you to know, I invested early. I used to line my dollies up and teach school. Had a reputation for being tough but fair. I loved it.
Then she talks about how she didn't have any money to go to college, but that doesn't matter because
I was a high school debater and I got a scholarship to college. Woohoo!
woohoo!
And then at 19, I fell in love, got married, and dropped out of school.
Wow, great story.
Woohoo!
Now, when you watch Warren telling this story more than one time, you might see a pattern.
I was a high school debater and I got a scholarship to college. Woohoo! I was a high school debater and I got a scholarship to college. Woohoo! I was a high school debater, got a scholarship to college. Yay! I got a scholarship to college. Yay! I was a high school debater and I got a scholarship to college. Woo! I got a scholarship to college. Debater, yes! I got a scholarship to college. Yay! I got a scholarship to college. Yay! I was a high school debater and I got a scholarship to college. Woohoo! I got a scholarship to college. Woohoo! Woohoo! I got a scholarship to college. Yay! I got a scholarship. Yay!
As the campaign rolled on, so did the scrutiny on her policies, especially her Medicare for All plan and how it would be paid for.
Will middle-class taxes go up? Will private insurance be eliminated?
Will taxes go up? That's a pretty straightforward question, and Warren refused to answer it.
On Medicare for all, costs are going to go up for wealthier individuals and costs are going to go up for giant corporations. But for hardworking families across this country, costs are going to go down, and that's how it should work.
So under Medicare for all, if everyone is receiving the same high-quality health care, then why are costs going to go up for the rich, but costs will go down for the middle class? Why would the rich have to pay more in costs? And even though her statement on Medicare for all made no sense, Warren's Real Clear Politics polling average rose from a low of 16.8% to a high of 26.6%, putting Warren neck and neck with Joe Biden. But what Warren didn't know is that this surge was not going to last much longer. In a yarn that she would spin at campaign rallies, she would talk about how she was fired from her teaching job in 1971 for being pregnant.
By the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days, wished me luck, and hired someone else for the job.
On October 7th, 2019, the Washington Free Beacon discovered records showing that Warren was offered a second-year contract by the Riverdale Board of Education and that her resignation was accepted with regret.
I worked, it was in a public school system, but I worked with the children with disabilities. And I did that for a year. I actually didn't have the education courses, so I was on an emergency certificate, it was called. And I went back to graduate school and took a couple of courses in education and said, I don't think this is going to work out for me. And I was pregnant with my first baby. So I had a baby and stayed home for a couple of years.
And that 2007 interview contradicts Warren's current version of the story. And it took about a day for the mainstream media to pick it up. And when they did, Warren doubled down in an interview with CBS News.
I was 6 months pregnant. It was my first job. I was 22 years old. And the job that was mine, that I'd been hired for the next year, was taken away when they knew I was pregnant.
And no one believed her. This was the beginning of the end of her campaign. Between this and the whole Native American heritage claim, her credibility was shot. Warren's dip in the polls began almost immediately, and it was going to get a lot worse. At the 4th Democratic presidential debate, she was asked again about how she would pay for Medicare for all.
You have not specified how you're going to pay for the most expensive plan, Medicare for all. Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down.
And that's when South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg stepped in and pulled a Tulsi Gabbard.
You say Senator Warren has been, quote, evasive about how she's going to pay for Medicare for all. What's your response?
Well, we heard it tonight, a yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this.
And in response to that criticism, Warren released her Medicare for All plan, and unsurprisingly, the math didn't add up. I'm not going to go into detail here, but the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal did a great job of breaking it all down. The link is in the description. Within a month of the release of her Medicare for All plan, Warren's polling average slid from 21.3 to 14.2. This was desperation time, and Warren's plan was to attack Pete Buttigieg in the dumbest way possible.
So the mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Think about who comes to that.
Billionaires in wine caves.
Throughout the campaign, Warren has been virtue signaling that she would not take PAC money or hold high-dollar fundraisers. But Mayor Pete was ready to strike back and attack her record.
Senator, your presidential campaign right now, as we speak, is funded in part by money you transferred, having raised it at those exact same big ticket fundraisers you now denounce.
And he's exactly right. Days after the debate, the Associated Press published a story about an Elizabeth Warren fundraiser at City Winery Boston in June 2018, where donors were treated to a concert by Grammy Award-winning artist Melissa Etheridge, and where top donors were treated to a VIP photo reception, premium seating, and a souvenir wine bottle for donors who contributed $1,000 or more. And according to records at the Federal Election Commission, Warren had transferred $10.5 million raised during her Senate campaign to her presidential campaign.
This is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass.
Elizabeth Warren, a hypocrite? I know, you're shocked. Besides, what's worse, taking money from billionaires or this?
Young woman came up by herself and she said, I'm a broke college student with a lot of student loan debt. And she said, I checked and I have $6 in the bank. So I just gave $3 to keep you in this fight. That's what we gotta do.
No, what you gotta do is stop bragging about how you suckered a college student out of half of her money, take out your little grandma change purse, and give her back her $3, jeez. Then in January, out of desperation, sources close to Senator Elizabeth Warren leaked to CNN that back in 2018, during a private conversation at dinner, Bernie Sanders allegedly told Warren that he did not believe a woman could win in 2020. Bernie Sanders released a statement denying that he ever told her this, and Warren released a statement saying that he did. And this became an issue at the Iowa debate.
Senator Sanders, I do want to be clear here. You're saying that you never told Senator Warren that a woman could not win the election.
That is correct.
Senator Warren, what did you think when Senator Sanders told you a woman could not win the election?
Obviously, the way that CNN's Abby Phillip posed that question looks very much like an effort to help Warren. And it backfired, because thanks to Warren's past credibility issues, no one believed her.
This question about whether or not a woman can be president has been raised, and it's time for us to attack it head on.
I think most people agree that a woman can be president, just not this woman. Warren rose from a special education teacher to a Harvard law professor to one of the most powerful people in the United States Senate, yet she claims that she's the victim of sexism. Nobody's buying what grandma's selling. And if you want proof, look no further than Super Tuesday, where Elizabeth Warren didn't win a single primary. In fact, Warren placed third in her home state of Massachusetts, and in 9 out of 15 state contests, she came in 4th place behind billionaire Mike Bloomberg. Finally realizing that she didn't have a path to the nomination, Senator Elizabeth Warren finally dropped out of the race.
One of the hardest parts of this is all those baby promises and all those little girls who are going to have to wait 4 more years. That's going to be hard.
Then maybe you shouldn't have promised so many little girls that you were going to become president. But don't worry, they'll get over it. Also, by saying that these little girls are going to have to wait 4 more years for a female president, well, it's basically an admission that Trump is going to win in November. In an interview on MSNBC, Rachel Maddow asked Warren about a potential role as vice president.
Are you thinking about the prospect that one of these remaining candidates might ask you?
No. Look, I've been running for president because I'm ready to be president. So I gotta kind of rework.
Grandma can rework all she wants because neither Bernie or Biden are going to ask her to be their VP, plain and simple, because Warren's lack of credibility is a liability. And if they do pick her to be VP, well, have fun with that.
Are you ruling out another presidential run yourself in the future?
Oh my gosh, are you asking me that today?
I'm asking you. You could run again in 4 years or in 8 years.
Oh my goodness.
And you would still be younger than Bernie Sanders is today.
But she would still be Elizabeth Warren, and that's always going to be a problem. Thanks for watching, sharing, and hitting that like button. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Check out the links in the description and check out these videos that you may have missed. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I hope to see you next time.